Good morning, and I welcome you all to this four-part video series, webinar series on applications. This is a very important time of the year for most of you who are applying for an MBA abroad. And we've made sure that we've kind of collated all the important aspects of your MBA journey. And we have some awesome mentors who are going to be part of this webinar series. So let's get started. So our first webinar today, 25th August, 10:30 in morning, Indian Standard Time. We are going to focus on how do we actually shortlist B schools, right? How do you figure out what is the best school which is right for you? So let me get started. So this is the agenda. So we'll have on an average, 90 minutes. We'll take up Q&A sessions too. So we'll start with focusing on what is important, what are the resources that are required for you to get started. Then it will be over to Ritvik to focus on how do you go about selecting the schools, and then we'll focus on the Q&A aspect of it. Let's have some ground rules for this session. We want to make sure that this is as free flow as possible. We'll take questions on the chat window. Just type in your questions on the chat window, and we will take it in the end. If it's more relevant or if it's a contextual question, we'll take it, as and when we are going through the session. But I would want you to, request you to please type in your questions on the chat window. Cool. So let me just introduce Ritvik. Welcome, Ritvik, and thank you for joining us. Ritvik is an MBA from CMU, Tepper School of Business. He works right now as a senior product manager at eBay, and he currently leads key initiatives driving customer focus for eBay globally. He's also a theater enthusiast, so I will let him talk a little bit more about himself in a couple of minutes from now and not steal the thunder from him. So welcome, Ritvik, and thank you so much.
Sure. Thanks, Shrikala. And let me know if I'm not loud enough. First of all, really excited to be here. I was in your shoes exactly 5 to 6 years back, and I can totally understand what you guys are going through at this point with a lot of questions. So I'll try my best to answer as many questions as possible today. Just like many of you, I started my career with engineering, and I did my undergrad from the Anand Sagar in Bangalore, and then moved to Accenture as my first company in Bangalore, started in their business intelligence domain and worked there for about 3 years. Then moved to a company called Headstrong, which got acquired by Genpact later. And now it's Genpact Capital Markets. So worked with clients in multiple domains in business intelligence, built business intelligence solutions for them. And then when I realized that I was at a crossroads where I want to decide whether I want to become a project manager in IT or want to try something else out, I realized that there are a lot of emerging trends in technology like mobility, big data, machine learning, and so on. And technology is at a very interesting point. So I decided to move into technology leadership. And for that, I thought an MBA would be the best. So went to CMU for my MBA full time. And I got an internship in eBay as a product manager intern. There I learned what product leadership is all about, and really liked the role, the company, the culture. And then I came in as a full-time senior product manager at eBay. In the last 3 years after joining eBay, I have grown in my role with taking more products, leading more initiatives, and now I'm leading a seller evaluation program for all global sellers in eBay, and also working on eBay feedback. That is a critical trust metric for buyers and sellers on eBay. So that's my professional life. Outside my profession, I work part-time in theater as well. I act. I used to act in Bangalore in an improv theater group, and here I'm a part of a theater group called Natak, which is America's biggest Indian theater. We do a lot of plays in Indian languages. So that's a bit about me. Over to you, Shrikala.
Thank you so much, Ritvik. That's really insightful and awesome. I welcome you again. I'll just introduce myself too. I'm Shrikala. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Crackable. So like quite of you, I also had my stint at the IT industry. Post HP, so that's where I worked for almost 7.5 years, worked with a startup too. Post that at Crackable, I also focus on mentoring students for masters and MBA programs. I'm also the ISB Goldman Sachs Women Fellow for the Women Entrepreneur Program. I also am a fellow of the Cherry Bear Foundation of Women Entrepreneurs, and currently I'm helping a lot of women entrepreneurs around the world, helping them with their startups and helping them with their initiatives. So that's about me. Let's get started. So there's one very important point over here. I just want to make sure that all of you also understand what are the resources that are required. A little bit about Crackable. So yes, founded in 2006. And over the years, apart from GMAT and GRE, we've also helped a lot of students getting into their top schools, right from Wharton to Harvard to Columbia to Tepper to INSEAD to, a lot of schools. So we've been part of a lot of exciting MBA journeys, and we've really been excited about it too. Some mentors apart from Ritvik, we have these are the mentors who work with us very closely for helping students through their MBA journey. So we have Rahul, who's from Kellogg. We have Sudhanshu, who's from Judge, Aruna from Wharton, Namrata from SED, Shrikant from ISB, Sanidhi from ISB, and Akshay from Haas. So four of us are also going to be part of this webinar series. So we are excited to have them as part of the webinar series. And, I'm sure you all will benefit a lot. And we would really love to help you throughout your MBA journey too. Some free resources to get you started. There are some great MBA application strategy videos. You should go to Crackable YouTube channel. We've also had a lot of essay analysis this year. We have essay analysis from all top schools. So I would want you to go through these videos on the Crackable YouTube channel. Try to understand how to analyze essays, how to go through it, what are the questions, what are the B schools actually looking for when they ask you such questions. So great resources. I would really request you to go and go through our YouTube channel and take help from these essay analysis. Apart from that, some great ebooks, very important aspects of your MBA, how to finance your MBA. We also have some sessions on, along with the sessions, we also have some ebooks which talks about how do you select your right school, how do you actually stand out in the applicant pool, how do you actually get into the dream school of your choice. So make sure you make use of these ebooks too. They are excellent resources for you to get started. One very important aspect, I would want all of you to get your profile evaluated. If you're confused, if you need to understand more about what you want to do next, you can go to our website, applications.crackable.com. Get your profile evaluated. Let us help you understand how you can get your profile, make it better. What are the important aspects of your profile that can be highlighted, and come across as a strong applicant when you're applying to one of these top schools, right? So just make sure you get make use of all these aspects of the resources. Over to you, Ritvik. Let's start the session. So we start with, how do we select or shortlist the B schools? And I would like Ritvik to take it from here, and I will pitch in Ritvik as and when required.
Sure. Thanks, Shrikala. First of all, I hope you were able to hear my voice. I saw a comment by Nikhil that he's unable to hear. So, okay, I get one yes on the comment. So I think I'm good. Awesome. Thanks, Abhinav. Now, let's move over to, okay, Nikhil can hear now. Cool. So let's move over to the question of how to select B schools. All of you have decided or are in the process of deciding to pursue an MBA. And the first question that should come to your mind is, okay, which B schools I should apply to? There are a lot of questions about business schools in US, UK, India, and what kind, where, right? So those are extremely important questions. And by after choosing the right business school, your application strategy starts. So answering that question is extremely important. So we have divided the answer to that question into 4 parts. The first is profile fitment, right? So first of all, before I go into these 4 parts, first of all, I want to help you understand what an ideal application strategy would be regarding B schools. Just like any kind of investment, financial investment, this is also a time and effort investment of MBA applications. So you should always distribute your investment in terms of risk, right? So whenever you invest in finance, you try to build a balanced portfolio. Similarly, here, when you are building a business school application strategy, you have to build a balanced portfolio of applications that you'll send. So just like finance, you will build your portfolio based on some risky schools where the chances of getting in are very less. Then there are achievable or within reach schools, and then there are safe schools. And there are different parameters on which these risky, safe, and practical schools are determined. One of them is, and as we will discuss later, GMAT score, class profile, and overall. But what you have to keep in mind is that you have to have a balanced profile. You cannot just apply on top 3 schools and hope to get in, right? Since you're investing time and energy, you should apply to as many schools in each bucket as possible. And of course, you have to limit your number to a reasonable number, right? So with that in mind, the right strategy for most candidates is that they apply to mostly 7 to 8 schools at max, and their school distribution is about 2 in 1 to 5 rank, then 5 to 10, 10 to 15, 15, 20, and so on. It also slightly depends on what kind of a work experience, GMAT score, and all that you have, so that your risky and safe might shift a little bit in terms of ranking. But now, with that, let's move into the next slide, which is college rankings. That's extremely important. There are many rankings that are published each year, and mostly the B school applicants look at that first when they are deciding the relative brand value of each school. And if you look at 4 or 5 rankings from different publications, you'll get a fair idea of which schools are the top ones, which are considered very good, which are considered good or average, and which are considered not so good compared to other top schools. So based on that, you will get a very clear idea of, okay, these are the bucket of schools that are really in top notch and would require an stellar application, stellar GMAT score, work experience, and so on. And then there are schools which are a little lenient on that because they're not as highly ranked. And that's true across the board. Schools which are ranked a little low, let's say a 25 ranked school on Business Week and a 5th ranked school in Business Week will have different admission criteria and yardsticks in terms of the quality of applicants. So with my experience, I'm telling you that that is true. And that's why I ask everybody to build that profile of risky, within reach, and safe schools. Now, once you have decided to divide your application across these buckets, now within those buckets, there are different schools. Now, how you will choose whether to apply to Kellogg versus Booth versus Wharton, right? All are good schools, or Harvard for that matter, right? So it all depends on what do you want to achieve from the MBA program and what these schools are looking for. It's a two-way process. They have to like you and you have to like them, right? We sometimes joke that it's more like dating. You cannot just apply and hope to get selected. They have to like you back. So in order to understand that, first, what you can do is look at the profile, class profile, and look at how these schools have constructed their current classes. So if you look at what the average experience is of the class, what the average age is, what kind of industry and function these students are coming from to that school and class, how much percentage of Asian versus Indian students. Some of these statistics you can easily find on school's website, and some of it you can spot check and try to get a sense through LinkedIn and other online social networking tools, right? And it's fair game to use LinkedIn for a lot of these researches. Even if, don't worry about people finding out that you have been looking at their profile. People expect that. People sometimes even like that their profile is popular. And I used to do that a lot. So if I was researching on Booth, I used to look at who is studying in Booth currently. Just type Booth MBA 2016, 2017, and you will see a lot of sample profiles or recommendations of class from that or profiles from that class, right? So do that research, look at their profile, look at their average experience they had before they entered the B school. Sometimes it also helps if you look at their extracurricular activities. A lot of these schools look for well-rounded candidates. So it's important not just to go by their work experience numbers and how much or how many years they have worked, how many years they have studied, but also look at what other extracurricular activities and volunteer organizations they're a part of. Look at their profile holistically to build a sense of what kind of caliber uh, these schools are looking into in candidates, right? And that will give you a very good idea of where do you stand compared to those profiles, and what it would require for you to crack the application process for those schools. The last one is culture of college, which is also extremely important because, as I said, within the top 5 schools, let's say Harvard, Wharton, Kellogg, and so on, the culture of the college is extremely different. You have to understand how many students are studying there, what's the current class size, whether it's collaborative, people are helping each other, or people are extremely competitive. Most schools like to believe that they have a collaborative culture where people help each other and they have a great bond going, but it's always varying across schools. Tepper is known for its collaborative nature, so much so that if when companies came for interviews and I was not invited for an interview, but I had a good knowledge about that company, I would go and train all those people who were invited for the interview without thinking that, hey, what am I getting from this, right? So Tepper is hopelessly collaborative, if I can use the word. So there are schools like that which will provide you that kind of environment, which is very close-knit, very collaborative. And there are schools I have heard, although I've just been part of one, I've heard that there are schools that are not as collaborative. And by that, it doesn't mean that people will backstab you. It's just that people are just worried about their own career and they are very focused on their own goals. So think about how you are as a person. Do you strive in competitive environment? Do you like collaborative environment? Do you flourish more when there is collaboration, or do you do your best when there is a competitive pressure on you? So depending on that, you can apply and choose schools, because some schools are known for that cutthroat competitive culture and some are collaborative and very close-knit. So based on those factors and that kind of research you can do with some student blogs. Some students write blogs about their school culture and what they like, what they did not like about their school. On LinkedIn, you can find posts, and you can read blogs from poets and cons. Even Crackbubble has some great material on schools and culture, and a lot of students you can reach out to through Crackbubble, through your own network, and try to find out how their experience was, what they liked, what they didn't like. And people are usually honest about this. They are not getting anything by lying to you, right? So just reach out to people, try to get as much research done as possible, and have a very good idea of what kind of class profile each school has, and that will give you an idea of how you have to present yourself in the application. So that's the first part.
So,
Now,
Ritvik, I had one
yeah,
question here. So, when it comes to Tepper, right? So, what
yeah,
was the size of the class, and what is the number of Asian and Indian students in your class?
yeah. So in my class, Tepper had a very small class size. I think it still has a very small class size compared to other schools. We had only 200 people per year, so 400 people, 400 MBA students in a given at a given time. And in that 200 students, um, we had about 30% Indians, so about 60 Indians, and 30% Asians, which is again 60, and the rest were Americans and some other ethnicities like South America, Australia, and so on. So it's a very good balance, I would say, because Tepper is considered a quantitative program, and it kind of attracts more Indian and Asian students. but there is a great culture where everybody interacts and collaborates with everybody else, and there are a lot of courses where, and that's true for most of the schools. You will get to interact with a lot of folks through courses and teams that are formed, and you will have a great interaction with those people. But yeah, that was the percentage in Tepper.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So,
And Shrikala, we are getting some questions, so I'll let you, kind of administer that, whichever you find most important, and if you feel we should answer that, I can answer. I'll try to answer if something is related to what I'm saying. So, any particular student blogs? For Tepper, I used to follow one. I don't remember the name, but just Google it. I used to write a blog for Tepper as well, but I kind of left it halfway. I could not continue it in my second year. So, but Google it, you will find a lot of folks who are blogging about their MBA experience. My work experience, I just explained, it's mostly IT, engineering. So yeah, I'm in business intelligence. So moving over to the next one, career prospects. I think this is perhaps the most defining question or parameter of how you will choose your B schools, because we are doing an MBA for an end goal, right? It's an expensive course, not just time, but money and effort and emotional investment. So we are doing it for a goal. It will help us reach a certain level in our career. Now, what that is, a lot of people do that because they just want to grow in their current role. They want to fast track their growth in, let's say, IT, and become a project manager or a program manager in IT, which MBA can definitely do for you. There are other people who, and I would say a lot of people, most of the people do MBA because they want to change their career and go in a different direction. And that could mean that they want to try a different function, a different industry, or a different role. They are working in IT, they want to try product marketing, right? And they want to go to a different company, better brand, and so on. So all these are very valid aspirations. And based on, first take a sense of what your aspirations are. When I was applying, I applied twice for my MBA application. And the first time I just applied like a novice without knowing anything. I just got some GMAT score. I applied wherever I wanted based on my own whims and fancies. And it did not work out. I did not get any call. The second time I applied, I was a little practical about it. I studied for GMAT, did my best, got a good score. And then I also focused on which schools and what should be the strategy for application. So I was very clear that I want to go into technology leadership, that I have already said, right? So when I decided I have to be in technology, I made a conscious effort to apply to some West Coast schools like USC Marshall, Carnegie Mellon, because of the tech brand that it has. And I was extremely clear that I want to move into product management or product marketing in technology. So my research was all around those people who have moved to Google, Microsoft, eBay, Facebook, where they have studied, what they have done before they came in, and so on. And I found that Carnegie Mellon's brand, because of its great technology program, is very high in among the tech recruiters. And that's why I chose Carnegie Mellon, even though I had an offer from ISB and North Carolina, where I applied as a safe school with a scholarship. And USC also offered me a scholarship, and Carnegie Mellon did not offer any scholarship. But I was clear that I wanted to go into tech leadership, and Carnegie Mellon was good for that. So I chose that school and went there. So it is very important that you understand what your aspirations are, and based on that, you should apply. So the general rule is, when you're doing your LinkedIn research, not just do the research on the current class profile, but also do research on where the alums are working. And I'll talk about improving my GMAT score in another session. I was 680 first, then was second attempt 750, and Crack Bubble had a big role to play. So I was researching on alums who are in Google, Facebook after an MBA, and where did they do their MBA from. And there were 3-4 schools that came in: Haas, Stanford, Carnegie Mellon, and USC Marshall. I applied to USC Marshall and Carnegie Mellon because I kept my application around that ranks. Now, so that research helped me identify what industry function roles people are going into. And one advice when you're thinking in terms of post MBA career, try to keep one of these constants. So if you want to change your role after MBA, you can also change function, but your industry should be same. So the idea is, don't try to change everything because it doesn't make sense to the adcom. If you are an engineer in Infosys working for a retail client, you cannot say that I want to be a brand manager at PNG working in the marketing function. It's a complete switch. So you should have some common ground. With that kind of aspiration, you choose the right school that will give you that switch in career prospects and help you move there. Okay, now that's around alum research and career prospects. One more aspect about career prospect that I found at B while being at B school. The biggest lead that B schools have for jobs, and jobs are extremely important. Every B school want their 100% of their students to be placed in good jobs with high salaries. But the biggest leads these schools have are their alums. So while you're doing research, it's not just about, okay, this, sorry. Yeah. So when you're doing the research, it doesn't mean that these are the folks who have made this change. So you will be able to make that change by default. It's also because these alums come back to the school to hire. And a lot of these schools have a career center that has an ongoing relationship with these alums. And if for any opportunity that comes in for an MBA, these alums reach out to their schools and try to like get a streamline of good talented students to fill in those roles. So having a good base of alums in a particular industry or a function is also indicative of the fact that a lot of future opportunities will come to that school for that kind of role and function. So for example, Tepper has a very big alum base in Amazon and PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, for consulting. So you can be sure that even when you join, Amazon will definitely come for interview. PwC will definitely come for consulting opportunities, right? So that will give you a good idea. And in your application as well, you can mention this reason because schools are well aware of their strengths. So you can say that I want to come to Tepper because I see that a lot of alum have gone to Amazon and I want to work in that industry and function, and because I feel I have the right skills. And schools will like the fact that you have done your research and understand that, yes, Amazon is a big employer, right? So that is career prospects, research on that is extremely important, and try to find out what basis. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, Ritwik, I have one question here. So, within the 200 people that you had in class, how diverse was the profile? Like, different kind of, like what kind of industries were, most of the people from?
Yeah. So I would say diversity at Tepper is not as great as you would find at maybe, let's say, UCLA or Stanford, because Tepper is a quantitative program. So it attracts mostly people from engineering, data-driven fields, statistics, finance. So a lot of my peers were engineers. Most of the Indian students were engineers. Even the American peers were from finance or from a quant marketing background. And although there were some like former HRs and people from NGOs and stuff like that, but Tepper expects quant proficiency, and they would appreciate it. And I think that's why they kind of build a class profile that can sustain that course load and coursework and power through that. But that doesn't mean that doesn't discourage from people coming from different backgrounds other than quantitative and engineering backgrounds to apply to Tepper. It's just that in my experience in my class, mostly people were engineers and technical background.
Okay. And in terms of changing industry, so you mentioned that, most people, it's better to stick to your industry, but you focus on changing your function and role. But
Yeah.
in your class, were there people who actually could change industries also? Is that a possibility, or post MBA, or is it something that we need to focus on when we actually write your application? We need to stick to what we are good at, and then there is a possibility to change your industry.
Yeah, it is possible to change your industry function role completely. That is possible, provided you showcase that zeal and talent and skill to learn that industry and really ramp up quickly. And a lot of people do that through internship. They try to get a role in a different industry, but which aligns with a lot of the skills they had already in the previous job. And through the internship experience, they build a profile and build a case on why they are a good fit for a full-time job in that industry, maybe in a different role. So a lot of people do that. But yes, you're right. My comment was more around when you are selecting schools. It is more practical if you think about which schools have the right alum base in the industry function and role that you're vying for. And schools definitely appreciate applications that sound practical and sound realistic. So if you are keeping one aspect constant and changing the two other aspects, that sounds more believable than not do my research, did not understand where people are going to. So that's what I meant by keeping one thing constant. But it is definitely possible if you are structured about it. Just one example is a guy who was an engineer in an IT company in India. He went to McKinsey as a strategy consultant working for a pharmaceutical client. Everything was different about his new role. So that is definitely possible. It is just difficult to crack.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks. So let's go on to the next option.
Yeah. So as I said, LinkedIn will be your best buddy when it comes to social network research. A lot of resources on LinkedIn will help you understand what the schools are doing. Some schools have these LinkedIn groups as well. I'm not sure if they've made it public or they are only for students, but you can try to get a lot of feedback and data and connections from LinkedIn. And in fact, I when I was doing my research, I used to reach out to these people saying I need information about these things. And out of 5 or 6 people you will reach out to, at least 1 or 2 will reply and will be very helpful. In fact, for a UNC Keenan Flagler, one student actually did a Skype call with me and explained the whole process. And I found a lot of things common between him and me about with respect to the work experience we had. He was also from business intelligence background. So we spoke a lot about that. So LinkedIn is a great resource to connect to people. And if you are really willing to find information, people are really, willing to help you as well. All right. The third thing is about geography. Geography is also very vital, and I'll tell you why. Most of Um, can
Hello?
you hear me? Yeah. Hey, Shrikala.
Yeah, sorry, I think there's some problem.
No worries. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, guys, just type in if you can hear. Okay, great. Yeah, so we can
Okay,
start
cool.
with the geography aspect of it.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, I was saying, West Coast has very distinct kind of companies and industries shaping it, and same goes for East Coast. And a lot of business schools in these regions kind of adapted to that because everybody wants their students to get jobs. And a lot of these companies that are in and innovation in finance in banking related jobs, whereas uh, in West Coast, Bay Area is all about San Francisco, and Bay Area is all about technology innovation, machine learning, neural networks, and so on, new kind of technologies. Seattle, on the other hand, has become a cloud hub with Amazon and Microsoft being there, two of the biggest cloud service providers. So Seattle is kind of a cloud hub technology. Um, so based on this, a lot of schools have started developing alum base and specific kind of jobs. So if you are interested in technology, uh, it will make sense for you to consider Berkeley, UC Berkeley, for example, as your one of the top schools, or Stanford for that matter, or even USC Marshall, which is not as highly ranked as Stanford or Haas, but still a very good school, and a lot of students come from USC to Bay Area, especially because their engineering program is also considered very prestigious. So all the West Coast schools, from Berkeley, Stanford, UCLA, and USC, to even Foster in Washington, Seattle, all these are great schools if you want to crack into technology related roles. In fact, schools like UC Riverside, University of California Riverside, UC Irvine, I know people who have done MBA from UC Irvine and got into Expedia, uh, and are working there post their MBA. So the point is, proximity to a particular hub makes your job a little easier. So if you are within the Bay Area, you will get exposed to much more technology leadership opportunities than, let's say, you are in Chicago studying in Kellogg or Booth. I mean, those might not be good examples because those school attracts good job opportunities. But if you consider an average school in Midwest and East Coast compared to an average school in the West Coast, the West Coast school will definitely have an advantage when it comes to technology opportunities and roles. So the point is, proximity of school to a particular hub or center kind of affects the jobs that you will get. There are certain companies that are willing to travel to any location, such as McKinsey, Deloitte, all these consulting firms. They already have an ongoing relationship with all these companies, schools. So they will always honor that. They will come for interviews and stuff like that. But if you discount all those companies that are anyway coming to the campus and off-campus opportunities, then a lot of these companies uh, who are in West Coast give you technology. And same goes for East Coast. If you are looking for banking, investment banking related roles, corporate finance and finance innovation, or even ad technologies, then New York area is perfect for you. Stern, Columbia, Wharton, uh, even like Simon Rochester Business School and schools like that, that will give you good access to alums and companies and opportunities in finance. So that is about geography. One other aspect of geography is India versus US MBA. I can speak to India versus US MBA because at that one point I had a Carnegie Mellon offer and an ISB offer, and I had a hard time deciding whether to go with um, ISB or Carnegie Mellon, right? So here's what I was thinking. I know for sure that uh, MBA in the US is very expensive, but at the same time, when you are done with your MBA, you start earning in dollars. Uh, when we take the visa equation out, I'll speak to visa equation separately, but if you take the visa equation out specifically from career prospects, the salary comparison is not fair if you do from between US and India. Those are two different scales. Similarly, the fees are different. So if and the role that you get, I'm working at eBay, and I'm leading global initiatives for all regions. That includes US, UK, Australia, Germany, and so on. If I if I graduate from a good business school in India and work for eBay or Microsoft or Facebook, the kind of influence that will have, it will not be as much as I will have here sitting in the headquarter of that company, right? So that's important to understand. That was my thinking at that point of time, and that's why I chose CMU and not ISB. For a lot of people, that may not work. They are happy working in a good, powerful position in a multinational brand, irrespective of which country or region they're working in, and that's a completely fine aspiration to have. All I'm saying is the fees that is usually a barrier for a lot of people. Just consider, take into perspective the salary and the position and the growth that you will get after an US MBA. That is in proportion to the fees difference that you see between US and India. Now let's come to the visa question. That is one of the most common questions these days, and I have faced visa issues as well. Especially with the recent change in government, the approach to immigration has become a little stricter. But there are ways in which people are trying to find easier ways to get H-1B visas and so on. So a lot of people, what I have seen doing is they also take extra credits so that their course is kind of considered STEM. And along with an MBA, they take an additional course which converts their whole degree to a STEM degree, and then they get additional time for visa application. Having said that, H-1B visa is now a lottery process, and it's sometimes a hit or miss. So if you are applying to US, always apply with this expectation that you may have to come back and work in India for a while. So if that is not an option for you, then you will have to rethink a little bit. I'm not saying that all of the students who apply, or most of the students who apply to MBAs get through MBA and now are going back to India. No, most of them are not. Most of them are working here because they find a way to get a sponsor, file H-1B, and it is a tiring process. Sometimes it's exhausting, but at the end of the day, it works out for most of the people. Yes, I have seen some people go back as well. So you should be mentally prepared. For most of the cases, it works out. In some cases, it doesn't. But if you are part of a good company and they take care of you, it eventually works out in favor of you. So the visa situation is not as good, but it should not be a blocker to your aspirations. That's my take. So I'll pause there. A lot of information. I'll let Shrikala ask any follow-up question. And meanwhile, I'll read the questions asked here as well.
Right. So I'll just talk a little bit about UK versus continental Europe, right? So
Right.
A lot of people, say that UK, there is a visa constraint within 2 to 4 months. If you don't get a job, you have to come back and things like that. In fact, I would recommend all of you to go and watch the recording of a webinar done by Apurva Pandit at our YouTube channel. So basically what we did is we tried to understand how is the situation in UK right now. What we have understood is maybe after Brexit, especially for people with skills which are more technical management kind of a skills in UK especially, it's not big of a problem for them to get into the work visa thing. In fact, people are getting four offers after their MBA. A lot of Europeans after Brexit have gone back to their own countries, so there is the things have got better in fact for Asians over there. So people who are looking at UK or continental Europe, UK could be something that they would want to, especially if you're looking at top schools only, right? Maybe things like SAID or Judge or London Business School kind of things. Not very sure of lower ranking schools, but I'm sure these schools also have their own brand name, which would help them. In terms of continental Europe, only one thing is areas like Spain and all, economy is not that great right now. So I think you have to be more considered. You have to consider more about your skills and whether there is an industry or job opportunities for the skills you have. I think that's the most important thing. And the second most important thing is focusing on the native language. That is very important when you're working anywhere in Europe, especially when you're looking at MBA and you're looking at leadership roles. It is very important that you need to have an understanding of that language, and in fact they require fluency. In fact, say for example, if you get through for an admit, it's not required, but as soon as you get an admit and you join the course, there are some credits where it's very important for you to go through the language, right? And you have to have like a B2 level kind of a fluency when you're looking at the local language over there. So if you're looking at Spain, it's Spanish. If you're looking at HEC, it has to be French and things like that. So and Germany, obviously German. So just make sure you understand that aspect. I'll touch upon US versus Canada also. Obviously, after the Trump thing, the visa issues that people are facing, a lot of people, Canada is kind of a priority for a lot of students who are applying for Canadian programs. A lot of great schools, Canada visa rules are also much better. They immediately after an MBA, you get an option to work there for 3 years. There's no lottery system. If you do any course which is more than 8 months, and obviously MBA qualifies because it's either 1 year or a 2-year MBA, you actually get directly a 3-year work visa over there, and which is renewable, right? So that could be some option that you're looking at. One thing that you also want to think about is Canada also has schools like HEC Montreal, or where it's a Quebec region. So then again, French is required, versus schools in Toronto, where obviously you can live with English, right? So that could be something you could look at. Some very great schools in Canada. You have Wharton, Shoreditch, Ivy, Queens. So you would want to explore those kind of schools also. Southeast Asia, Australia, again, I think here you would want to more focus on how you map skills to the industry where there is requirement in terms of job opportunities. Like Ritvik said, do extensive research on LinkedIn, go through the alum profiles, understand, whether what is the job opportunities available over there, because obviously everything boils down to your employability factor, right? So just make sure you research on those aspects before you kind of finalize the kind of schools you would want to work with, right?
Yeah, one thing that I want to, because there is a thread going on the STEM part, right? So there are a lot of courses that combine business and technology courses, and they qualify for STEM. So MBA always may not qualify for STEM because a lot of schools don't have that option. But MSISM or MSIM, Master of Science in Information Science Management or Information Management, MSIM, is a course which mostly qualifies for STEM. Carnegie Mellon has a school called Heinz, and Heinz offers that course. And I've seen a lot of those alums from the MSIM courses going to consulting, going to product marketing, management, and so on. But it's always a hit and miss because they get a lot of coding related or technology related courses as well. So a lot of times they get sucked into a technology role rather than a business role. So that is the risk, but the advantage is that you get more time to apply for H1B, and you get 2 chances rather than 1 chance. So
right. Cool. So we'll get on to the next.
Yeah, let's go there.
So here, let me just take a quick poll. So how many of you are, what's the status of your GMAT? If you could just let us know so that we understand, the audience. Nikhil, you can just use the poll. Cool. So I think I have around 58% of people who are, still planning to take their GMAT, and the rest have either taken or, retaking. Some 5% is still thinking. Thank you so much. That's good information. So let's talk about your chances of admission.
Yeah, I think GMAT score is a very good yardstick to set your expectation, as I said in the beginning, about what are your stretch schools, which I call risk schools, and what are your safe schools and achievable or practical schools, right? So every school has this average GMAT score published on their website. And if you beat that average GMAT score, that's a good sign. You become competitive for that school. But you should bear in mind that most of the Indian applicants have very high GMAT scores. So, for example, when I joined Tepper's average GMAT score was 690. But I never found any Indian student in Tepper which was less than 700. So, a little bit of inflation is always there when you're competing with Indian peer groups, right? So, um, in Tepper, mostly what I found in my experience was that if you had 3 to 4 years of experience or above and a GMAT score of 720 and above, then you stood a very decent chance of cracking it. Also, always provided with good essays, stories, and a well-rounded profile. But that was the ballpark. So the idea is you look at the average score of the school and you beat it, and if you comprehensively beat it, then you stand a very good chance. If you just beat it, you have to be very competitive and compensate in other areas like leadership experiences, recommendations, resume, and so on. And that's the equation, because they are looking at the whole package. So if you lack somewhere, you have to make up somewhere else. And GMAT is a good so I'll tell you how Adcom looks at GMAT. A lot of times I get this question, okay, I'm a 4 out of 4 GPA in my undergrad. My GMAT is not as good as I would have liked. My GMAT is only 650 or 620, right? So here is how Adcom looks at GMAT score. They look at GMAT score to understand how capable you will be to sustain the academic load in the program. Now, if you have just graduated, recently graduated with 1 or 2 years of experience, 1 or 2 years of experience, your undergrad GPA is also considered to understand how good a student you were in your undergrad, because that they believe is a predictor of how good you will be in your masters. Now, if you have 5, 6 years of experience, then your undergrad takes a little bit of less weightage compared to your GMAT. And your GMAT is considered more reflective of your caliber as a student academically. So it's always a combination, right? So your undergrad is also considered, your GMAT is also considered, but having a good GMAT score is always recommended, because sometimes companies also ask for it. I know a lot of consulting companies that ask for GMAT score, and they would like to see GMAT score on your resume, like McKinsey, Bain, BCG, the top three, and even like PwC and AT Carney. When it came to Tepper, we had to report our GMAT score, and they see that as um, a mark of or an indicator of your potential as a consultant as well. So GMAT score carries weightage not just in admission, but sometimes in job interviews as well. So I just wanted to make that clear. It is a good yardstick to measure what your risk, safe, and reach schools are. And as I said in the beginning, if you're applying to 6 schools, just divide it by 2 safe, 2 reach, 2 stretch, so that you will always have a balanced application strategy. I'll tell about myself a little bit here. So when I first applied, I got 680 in GMAT. So, and that was my first attempt. I applied in various schools. And then second time when I applied for GMAT, it was a bit late, because I applied for my GMAT in October, and by that time I had already selected some schools. So I had 680 scored in the past. I thought I will try to improve it based on my practice GMAT tests, and I was thinking of a 720. I'll get around a 720, 710 or 720. And based on that, I decided to apply in some schools, especially in the first round. Now, when I appeared for the GMAT in October, I got a 750. So I still wonder whether what would have happened if I knew that I was going to get 750. In round one, I could have been a little more aggressive. So I applied to Tepper and USC in North Carolina and so on. And since Kellogg was my dream school, I applied to Kellogg. I got interview calls from everywhere. So now my biggest regret now is that, or sometimes I think about it, that I should have applied to a bucket 5 to 10 ranked schools. I never applied. I never touched that bucket. So schools like Haas, for example, right? Fuqua, Duke University, and so on. So it's important to have a GMAT score when you're thinking about schools, because that will give you a very good idea of what schools you can hit and what schools are achievable, and you don't have a regret later unless you are considering applying again, right? So that was my story for you to learn on having all your data points with you before you go and choose your school, so that you don't have any regrets later, right? So GMAT score is extremely important. I'm not saying that you cannot choose schools without GMAT score. You can. It's just that you'll always be guessing what your score will be, and based on that, what good schools you can apply to.
Right. So, Ritvik, I have one question here. Now, most people, if you look at the average age that is published on their website, right? So, or the average experience, it would be around, say, 6 to 8 years, or that would be the average experience. Is that true? Like for Tepper, what was the average experience of the people who were there in your class?
Yeah, average was around 3 to 4 years of experience. There were, I would say, 4 years was the average.
Okay.
There were people with 2 to 3, and there were people with 5 to 6, but the average I would say, was around 4.
Okay. So, what was the highest experience that anyone had?
Yeah, so we had this guy from Bangalore, Cisco. He used to work in Cisco. He had about 12 years of experience, and he was uncertain whether he got admitted to Tepper, and then he had a special call with the admission committee to understand whether it makes sense for him to join an MBA program with people who mostly 4, 5, 6 years of experience. He is coming with almost double the work experience, and he was satisfied with the answer received. He spoke to the Adcom about the career opportunities he'll get after the MBA, and he was pretty happy, and he got a good role. He actually joined Cisco back here in the Bay Area in the headquarters, and he got a good role.
Okay. In terms of people with higher experience, does the admission committee actually look at their academic profile? Do they, I mean, since they already have so much experience, does it make sense for them to look at their academic profile?
The more you spend your time in full-time job, your undergrad and whatever you did in college, school becomes less and less important. So for this guy, I don't think they would have even considered how he was, although he was a master's from US. So he had done his master's in technology in US, and then he went back to India and started working there. But that was at least 6 to 7 years back, right? So for this guy, I'm pretty sure that his GMAT carried more weightage, and he had a good 740 GMAT score. So my point is, after 4 or 5 years of undergrad, your undergrad score, I mean, it does carry some weight, but GMAT becomes more important. In just 1 or 2 years from undergrad, the undergrad score would still carry some weightage, and as how you will perform as a student.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that's how you should think about selecting schools. Those 4 parameters are extremely important.
Okay.
And I think we have answered most of the questions. Probability of, okay, round 1 and round 2. Yeah, that's a very common and popular question. Let me just briefly touch upon that. Round 1 is definitely less people apply in round 1. That's a fact. So, and mostly schools have to fill in seats. So they have fixed number of seats that they try to fill in each round. So probability wise, I would say you have a better chance in round 1, but you should never compromise on your application quality. So I'll give you an example. So a guy who has taken his GMAT in May, right? he has time to research schools and devise the application strategy for 2 months, June, July. August, he starts drafting the application, polishing it, and by September, end of September, he is ready with submission. That compared to a guy who has appeared in the GMAT in August, and he's just started working on the application end of August, September 15th or 30th is the deadline. If they feel that they have not done the best, I would recommend they do not apply in round one. Just give your best, because giving your 40% in round one is worse than giving your 80% in round two. That's my take. So try to apply in round one as much as possible, but don't compromise with the quality of your application.
Okay, so before we get on to the questions, let me just quickly talk about something that will really benefit all the attendees today. We'll take up each question. So I want all of you to go and access this MBA starter kit. I'm just putting in the link of this starter kit. Basically, this gives you a very good understanding of what is required. There are great videos to understand the entire process. You can use a coupon code. It's a $99 course, but you use a coupon code which is for Crack MBA 2018, and you get it for $1. The whole idea of this course is to get you started in terms of your process, give you a clarity on all the one-on-one questions. Though through this webinar series, that's exactly what we are trying to focus on, making sure that all of you are very clear with what is required when you actually go through the entire process, right? So this is a very good collation. So just make sure that you go through this. It is for most top schools because we are this whole webinar series are for people who are looking at top schools across the world, right? So cool. So let's get started. Let's take questions now. So I'm just scrolling up to pick up more relevant questions. Please understand, we won't take very specific profile based questions. We would like to take more generic questions which help which will help everyone who's attending the session here, right? So let me just scroll through.
So I see one question about international exposure. So let me just quickly address that. Yes, international work exposure basically tells the Adcom that you have worked in a cross-cultural environment and you have worked with people not from your immediate proximity and culture and so on. So you should definitely use that in your essays to showcase that you are already used to working with people from other cultures and countries. Because a lot of Indian students I have seen when they come to the US for the first time, including me, they are a bit hesitant in going out and talking to people from other regions and cultures and countries. And sometimes they don't even know what to talk about. They are mostly comfortable in their own zone and group of Indian students. And that is very natural. But Adcom, if you can highlight the fact that you have already worked in cross-cultural environments and have succeeded in those kind of environments, that will give you an edge over other Indian student applying who has never been part of that kind of team.
Right. So we have one more question by someone who's, let me just check what was the question once again. So somebody's asked about, so we are not focusing on specific schools across Ireland and all, but I would just want to add to it. Most companies have head office in Ireland for two reasons. One is because of tax reasons. Because I think companies they have to pay less tax. I think that's the main reason. What I would request you to look at is what are the kind of roles that are available, and if it maps to whatever skills you have, I think that is more important than specifically looking at schools in Ireland. Ritvik, if you could just help us about the OPT period that is available for MBA students, that would be great. And what is there any way to extend it, given the situation that we are in right now?
Yeah, so OPT for MBA, because it's not considered STEM, it's 1 year. In my case, my internship ended in August, and I got a full-time offer right after my internship, which may not happen in some cases. That you graduate in May next year and you are still looking for a job. That can also happen. But let's consider an ideal scenario and I'll try to explain how the whole timeline works. You will do in your first year, after first year in the summer, you will do your internship that typically lasts 3 months. After that, there is one more year to graduation. During that year, you look for full-time jobs, and mostly people try to get full-time jobs by December. If you are going into the next year, January, February timeframe without a job, it starts to get stressful, especially around May when you are graduating. If you don't have a full-time job, it gets very stressful. But let's say by February you have a job, right? So February you have a job, your H1B visa application starts on April 1st. So April 1st, every company applies for H1B visas. So on February, you have a job, your company will apply for an H1B visa, ideally, if they sponsor. And so that will be your first H1B visa application. You will also apply for OPT, which is optional practical training, which allows you to work for a year after your master's, which is your MBA. Now, here's how it works. Your April 1st visa applies. The company has given you a join date of, let's say, May 20th. May 20th, you join with your OPT, because your OPT is approved for 1 year. So it will start date of OPT will be May 20th. It will end on May 19th of next year, right? That's 1 year. During this time, your company has already applied for your H1B visa in April. Let's say, unfortunately, you did not get into the lottery. Next year, in April, the company will again apply for the H1B visa, and your OPT will be about to end. So now by May 19th, your H1B visa decision must be out, that you have been approved, or you have at least selected in the lottery. Once you are selected in the lottery, by May 19th, you receive this notice. There is a concept called cap gap, which basically tells you, since your H1B only kicks in October 1st, from May 20th onwards to October 1st, you will be in a cap gap where your OPT is extended. OPT cannot extend beyond October 1st. Because October 1st, your H1B will kick in and you will start working on the H1B visa. Until then, you were always on F1 visa, right? That's how OPT works. For STEM courses, this period is more, that's 17 months. So they get more duration and one additional chance to apply for H1B. That's typically how it works, the OPT.
Oh. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
So, Ritvik, did you have any entrepreneurs in your class who were looking at, maybe working on their business plan when they were working on their doing their MBA?
Yeah, we did. In fact, we had a very good course on entrepreneurship, which actually brought out a lot of those hidden entrepreneurs within our class. Even if somebody had a small basic idea, that course gave us a chance to test it out. So we formed teams and actually we pushed all our effort behind that idea. And some of those folks were serious entrepreneurs. They were thinking about starting their own company and stuff like that. One of my colleagues from Tepper has his own hedge fund here in Silicon Valley, and he's doing pretty well. So people are, in every class there are people who have these ideas, who they want to pursue, and most of these schools give chances through courses, through entrepreneurship centers, and through grants and prizes, awards, to enable people to establish their own company. And because these entrepreneurs, if they are successful, they become employers in future, and every school wants that. So there is entrepreneurship club, there are entrepreneurship treks where they are taken to different startups and they try to understand how to take an idea and build a company out of it. So yeah, there were few entrepreneurs in my class. One I know has started his own company. For others, I'm not sure where they are. For some, they did join a company, and they on the side they are working on their idea.
So one more question, Ritvik, I had is people talk about electives, right? Like they say MBA and marketing, MBA and finance. When do the electives actually come into picture? The first year or the second year? And how does that work?
So it depends on school. So I know Booth has this concept of no electives, no mandatory courses. Everything is elective starting from day one. So every school takes a different approach. Some schools believe that no, you should get foundation of everything before you move on to electives. And electives are meant to tailor your course. Electives are meant to give you an option. to tailor your course to suit your career, because MBA is a very general degree, and in US you don't have the concept of MBA in marketing or MBA in finance. They have this concentration, the concept of concentration. So you take 5 courses in one concentration, and then you can say, I'm an MBA, I'm a general MBA, but I have concentrations in finance and marketing and so on. But you will not be tagged as MBA in marketing. You will not be tagged as MBA in finance. So that is why electives are offered, because if you feel that after 1 year, you feel that, no, I want to go into investment bank, or I want to go into consulting, there are specific courses that are good for it and I want to take it, then you can take it. But as I said, it depends on schools. So Tepper had this concept of first year will be mostly mandatory courses. And let's say every mandatory course had 2 levels. One is, let's say, finance 1, finance 2. So finance 1 was very basic. Then next semester, maybe you take finance 2. But if you already come from a finance background, are you paying thousands of dollars to learn the same thing that you have worked on for the last 6 years? No, right? I mean, you would rather utilize your time in learning something else. So Tepper had this concept of waiver exams. Every person who felt confident about a mandatory course could give a waiver exam, and if they pass that exam, they will be waived from the requirement of finance 1, for example, right? So they can then choose finance 2. They will straight away they go to taking a higher class. So every school thinks about it differently. Some schools I know have to mandate that you have to take all the courses and then you can take electives. Booth, for example, right away, starting first year, you can take electives as many as you want.
Okay, cool. Is there any specific question? I'm just scrolling. A lot of questions on LORs and all. We will be addressing that in the webinar in the afternoon, and there are 3 more webinars that we are going to conduct as part of this series. This session is completely focused on how do you go about selecting school. So let's be in the scope of this webinar, and we'll be focusing on answering those questions only. There's one question from Deeksha who says, what are the advantages and disadvantages of applying on early decision rounds and round 1, round 2?
Yeah. As I said, if you feel that you're prepared in terms of application and essays and everything, you can definitely, it's a very good strategy to start early and apply early and apply with your best application. A lot of students do it at the last time, and they do it in a hurry, and then they screw up. So you have to understand that round 1 does not always mean that you will get scholarship, you will get admission. It's always a function of how well you are prepared and what other peers have put forth as an application. So if you have applied with half-hearted attempt in round 1, leave scholarship, you won't even get admitted. Whereas if you have applied with full effort in round 2, you may not get the scholarship, but you'll get admission. Scholarship is always a function of how well or how well they like you, right? It's all about how much they like you compared to other students. And every school has some quota of scholarships. So if you are in the top 10% of all the applicants for that round, you will get scholarship. I've seen people getting scholarship in round 2 as well. I got a scholarship in round 2. So for UNC, Keenan Flagler. So it's not that round 1 means scholarship and admission and round 2 doesn't mean scholarship and admission. It's all about a function of, so if you start early in May or June, starting research and all that, and you are ready by round 1 with a great stellar resume, applications, everything, then definitely apply in round 1. But if you don't feel prepared and you feel that there's a lot of things that are missing in my application, I could do much better, wait for round 2. It's worth it.
Okay, there's one more question that I would take up, which is relevant to this session, is for product marketing, is there any other schools apart from Tepper? I think Ritvik already touched on this aspect, right, Ritvik?
Yeah, I did. So I would say for technical product marketing in technology companies like Google, Facebook, Haas, Stanford, definitely. But I understand that those are top-notch schools and might be stretch schools for many of the candidates. So I would equally encourage you to apply to UCLA, USC Marshall, UC Irvine, even Foster. these are technology schools, but they do get a lot of product marketing related role opportunities. And one school that not a lot of Indian students know of, my wife is studying there. It's Santa Clara University. It is right in the heart of Silicon Valley, but it is not ranked because they did not have a full-time program until now. They have a part-time program. So a lot of people who have working visas in the US do come to Silicon Valley and they take part-time course in Santa Clara. And Santa Clara, since it is located right in the heart of Silicon Valley, has a lot of opportunities in product management, product marketing, program management, and technology. So do consider that. It's a good school. It has a good brand value, especially in Silicon Valley, because people know about Santa Clara. Outside Silicon Valley, not so much. So throwing it out there for students who have work permit to come in the US, work, and then do an MBA part-time.
Right. Any thoughts on 1 year versus 2 year MBA? Because nowadays I see a lot of US schools also coming out with 1 year MBA programs.
I feel that 1 year MBA is a bit rigorous compared to 2 years. For US, I would recommend 2 years, because when you are coming here in a new culture, in a new country, there are a lot of things that you have to learn. And I feel that if I in Tepper had only 1 year to complete whatever I did with job search and with internship and everything, I would have never made it. So I would recommend always invest time and get a 2 year MBA. It will all be worth it. You will have a great time, and you will also learn a lot at a pace that you will enjoy, and adapt to a culture where, with a support system, where you will feel comfortable and succeed in due course of time. So my recommendation will be 2 years, especially based on my experience. Any other question? Can you tell the name again of the university? It's Santa Clara University, if that's what your question is. So round 2 scholarship, I see this question. Round 2 scholarship is not luck, but it's based on, it's tougher because there are more candidates. And let's say you have to become top 10% of the applicant pool. That means you're competing with more candidates. So it's your numbers are against you in round 2 a little bit compared to round 1, but just evaluate whether your application, if you think that your application is 90% ready and only 10% will be increased in terms of quality in round 2, apply in round 1. But if you feel that your application significantly needs some improvement and areas where you can improve, apply in round 2. There's a break from career. I haven't seen break in career as a disadvantage, mostly unless you cannot explain it. So explain it in a way that shows that you were gaining other experiences and you will be fine.
Right. So let me just, kind of summarize some of the questions that have been going on, right? So one thing that a lot of people are asking is about scholarship. Right now, please understand that scholarship is given to those whom they want in the class, right? So this could be dependent on the GMAT score, because one of the reasons of schools to be ranked high is the average score of the class. Which also means if you are applying with a higher score and they feel that, with your profile and with your GMAT score, they would really, it would help them increase their average, they could give you a scholarship. That could be one aspect of the scholarship. Other than that, there are some scholarships that are offered even after you are into the program. I'm not sure if Tepper has it. Does Tepper any have such kind of scholarship which kicks in after a semester, especially for international students?
At my time, there was none, but as I understand, they have started. In fact, our class collected some fund and started a scholarship program for incoming students. I'm not sure if it, at the time of admission, they announce it, or it is a separate application after you are admitted. But there is something that students can apply to, and there is also a federal scholarship, but I'm not sure if a lot of Indian students are even eligible for that. But there are ways in which you can get scholarship. One thing on funding and finance that I want to point out is there are schools that offer to be the co-signer for the loans that you will take, educational loans. And there are schools that do not offer that. So always keep that in mind. That was one thing that I did not take into account. And Tepper does not offer co-signer, being a co-signer. So you will not get loan from US. You will have to secure loan from India if you're planning to. So that is also one of the key criteria that you should think about when you're applying to B school. If you finance is a constraint and you're thinking of taking a loan, then try to go for schools who act as a co-signer so that you get uh, a loan from US, because the interest rates are much lower here compared to India.
Right, right. Another question that I think Muthu has is the number of experience considered at the time of application or starting of the course? So yeah, you can take that.
Yeah, so they understand that you will be working until you start at the school. So they calculate it based on when you will start. So if you are applying in July, for example, and you will only join next year, August, they will add that 1 year of experience.
Right. Cool. So I think we've covered, most of the questions which are, relevant for this session. Like I said, I request you all to attend the session at 4:32 today. This is by Arun and Sudhanshu, and they will be focusing on the employability aspect of it. So a lot of you have questions based on, experience and whether, based on your specific backgrounds, how is the employability factor. So I would suggest you definitely should attend the, second session at 4:32. Let me just, kind of take a few last questions, a couple of them.
Yeah.
INSEAD from France or Middle East are both the same. INSEAD has options to do your MBA from Fontainebleau in France and Singapore. Some people do it completely in France, some people do it completely in Singapore. You also have an option to do it in both places, half semester there and half semester here. So you would want to, I think you're given a choice once you get an admit over there. So Akshay, recommendation letters, they will be taken, these questions will be taken up in the other webinar. So I would suggest you please attend the other webinar so that, we stick to what we are going to talk about right here. Some schools have started their tech MBA. Ritvik, do you have any understanding of that, or?
I think what they're trying to do, is get some tech courses as a part of the curriculum. I know that Tepper did start MS in product management, which is a very good mixture of business and technology courses from computer science school, which is very highly ranked in Carnegie Mellon. So, I mean, I'm not aware of any tech MBA courses in other schools, but I think if there are such courses, that's a good viable option, especially if they are considered STEM courses. So
okay,
I would recommend that. Yeah.
I'll just take one last question specifically for Ritvik. Some said Tepper is, you said Tepper is more for people with tech background, more people with tech background apply. So does that mean people with, as chartered accountants should not apply, or how does that work?
No, I think, so with tech, I did not mean tech, I meant quant background. And it's not like Tepper does not encourage you to apply for from non-quant backgrounds like arts and humanities and stuff like that. It is just that when you say the school is good in quant courses and quantitative, it has a impression of a quantitative program. So you just have to showcase that why you're excited about the program and how you can deal with the course load. And for engineers, finance related, and I had a classmate who was a CFA, so, and a CA. So finance, number crunching, engineering kind of roles, it's easier to justify why you're interested and how you can leverage some of the skills that you have gained in your job. For some humanities related courses, it will be difficult to justify, but the other flip side of that is, since that is something that you want to learn, and Tepper is a great school to learn that and apply that in your work place, because every domain today is moving towards database decision making and stuff like that. So that also is a very strong argument on why we want to join Tepper, even if we don't have any quant background. So I would encourage everybody to apply. It's just a question of how well you justify why you want to attend that program. That's important.
Great. So one last question, Rachit, I'm going to answer your question. So his question is East Asia, Hong Kong versus Southeast Asia, MBA in US or instead Singapore. So Rajat, like I mentioned, I think it's more important to understand your post-MBA career goals. Please, it's not about what is, there's nothing good or bad about any of these schools, right? So your focus should be that based on your post-MBA career goals and based on your pre-MBA function and industry, what are the job prospects in that particular country? What are the kind of companies in and around that school? Like, Ritvik spoke about the proximity, right? It helps, right? So maybe you would want to look at that aspect. You could look at the alum profiles to see where are they placed, to understand your fitment, to see whether, your post-MBA career goals are fitting into what exactly they are doing right now. So it's not a decision more based on just ranking or more based on just the GMAT score. I would suggest, since we are looking at an investment which is quite high, if you're looking at any foreign MBA, right? So it's important that we look at all these aspects of research when we are, looking at going through selecting the kind of school. So my suggestion is, kind of keep a criteria for yourself, apart from all these four things: career prospects, profile fitment, GMAT score, and career progression. So all these things are important aspects to choosing your MBA program. We would like to help you with the profile evaluation. So all of you could, whoever's interested can go to applications.crackable.com and get your profile evaluated. Lot of specific questions which are related to your specific profile, we would like to help you answer that. Please do use the Crack MBA 2018 code to go through this Kickstart MBA program too. That will definitely help you a lot. I look forward to get all of you for the 4:30 session 2 with Sudhanshu and Arun. Thanks a lot, Ritvik, for your time.
Sure.
I really appreciate taking out time on a Friday evening
no worries.
for you to come and help our students. And thank you so much. Thanks a lot, Ritvik.
Sure, Srikala. Thanks a lot. Thanks, everyone. And good luck, everyone.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Good luck. And please let us know how we can help you. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.